Hello guys! Welcome back everyone to the episode of Mando-Monday. This is the series where you guys ask the questions and I of course answer them. And that could be to do with anything related to Counter-Strike 2, Valve, future upcoming updates such as CS2's first operation, future update or addition to the Armory, or maybe it's new returning maps, modes, weapons, or features. If you guys have a question you want a shot at being answered in next week's video, leave it down below this comment section as well as my many community posts that I typically put out right before Mando-Monday usually arrives. This week's episode of Mando-Monday, we break down a large variety of topics such as Counter-Strike's 30th anniversary, Half-Life 3, new CS2 content, the drop pool, skins, alongside a bunch more. But before we do so, I want to give a huge thank you to Skin Club for sponsoring today's video. Skin Club is a highly popular case opening platform with a massive collection of cases for you to unbox, giving a fair chance for all players. For those who are 18 years or older, elevate your gaming experience by collecting and upgrading amazing skins through a provably fair system, ensuring a fair chance whether you're unboxing by yourself, competing against other players, or battling bots. Consider the stakes and transform your unwanted baggage into something shiny. Simply select the skin, explore the upgrade options, and move the slider to your preference. Every month, Skin Club features a brand new event packed with cases, exciting giveaways, and points for participating on the platform, which can be spent on the marketplace. There are multiple different payment methods such as crypto, card, or skins. And withdrawing your winnings takes seconds. Head to your profile, select the skin you want, and you'll have it in your inventory. Don't miss out on the 7% deposit bonus. Check out the link in the description below.
Let's roll.
Now, our first question up here for today's video, we're gonna hop right into the meat and potatoes, and this is going over the drop pool versus the Armory pass on how Valve could kind of be going away with cases in the drop pool system. Now, this question up here is from Frosty Gaming, and he says, "Hey Luke Eats, do you think they will remove a case that will go to the rare drop pool since they can just add that case to the Armory pass and not remove it from the current drop pool?" So this is actually a very interesting question, and it's one I have seen trending on Reddit, CS2 Twitter, my comment section, and the list goes on. But long story short to this, I don't think Valve is gonna take cases they would otherwise put in the rare drop pool and add into the Armory. Let's just take the Kilowatt case. When the Call to Arms released last year, when it's time for that case to retire, it's not going to go onto the Armory pass. At least that's my personal opinion. What I think is more so going to happen is any future case release, such as the Fever case, the Gallery case when the Armory first released, those are just going to release in the Armory. And don't quote me on it, but I think over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, especially if CS is around in 10 years, which I believe it will be, any future case is just going to be added onto the Armory since the Armory is never going to disappear. And it's essentially just, well, a never-ending money printer for Valve. So instead of removing a case from the drop pool system and adding it to the Armory, I think Valve is going to keep it in the drop pool system. So over the course of the next few years, Valve can slowly go away from cases in the drop pool. This will reduce bot farms, but this will also reduce a lot of profit for those who had nothing to do with those. Now, that's subjective, that's speculation, it's all my opinion. It's just I firmly believe that all new cases going forward will only release in the Armory because it's ultimately going to make Valve the most amount of money. It's going to stop quite a few bot farms, but even then, will it really stop that many? Because most bots and bot farms nowadays only go after the Armory because of how easy it is to, well, obtain those items. And most farms also now have an automated system where they can just keep buying passes, send, trade skins, and even sell them. So with that being said, I think maybe the drop pool system we've had for the last 10 or so years will slowly fade away. It's just in my opinion, after the Fever case release with the Armory Pass 2.0, when Valve saw they made $82 million from pretty much one weekend alone from that case, yes, it was a lot of farmers, it was a lot of players both stocking up stars to get those new cases. It's somewhat also more of a player-friendly route to release cases, release skins, and you guys get the rest. But I think it just really comes down to money here, and that's all there really is to it. Our third question up here for today's video is surrounding Valve's 30th anniversary for Counter-Strike 2. This guy says, do you think CS2 will celebrate the 30th anniversary, considering it skipped the 25th like it was nothing? Games like Half-Life celebrated 25 years, but all CS2 got was a tweet. And well, that's all they got. So for those who don't know, I want to explain the situation dating back to last year for the 25th anniversary of CS and why it was such a deal breaker for a lot of Counter-Strike players. So if we date back to last year, this was a really big turning point for the Counter-Strike franchise, not to mention CS2. The game was at a pretty weird but not great spot. At the time, we had no mention, no idea that anything like the Armory would ever release. So a lot of players that missed cosmetics, missed the operation format, but also content with maps, modes, and features, thought that would come in a large update like the Armory, where that would have missions, we'd get maps, and that would be a done deal. And on the other side of things, Valve probably also missed it because they got a boatload of money from operations, but not as much as the Armory prints nowadays. So long story short, players thought Valve would release something big. There was hints, there was teases, there was a lot of data mines and leaks. This was also a point in time where we could see the data mines. So there was even evidence backing this. But then when it came time for the actual anniversary, all Valve did was send out a tweet on the CS2 Twitter account, and that was it. Comparing games like Half-Life, for an example, like this guy did in his question. They received a whole documentary on how the Half-Life franchise was created, but also a brand new re-release with some other things on the side. So with the backstory being said, I believe there's a couple of reasons of why they didn't celebrate it. Number one is probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but it's Valve's growing distaste for the Counter-Strike franchise and its players. Even since the days of CSGO, where some may say source, every update that they put out, whether it's good or bad, there's always going to be a boatload of players that criticize it. And because the devs can work on what they want when they want at Valve, they could choose to work on CS whatever, drop what they're doing, come back and realize, oh, I can't release that because it's too outdated, so they start again and the cycle continues. But at what point do you just have to say, screw the people who don't like it and move forward and have a dedicated team just to work on Counter-Strike? Because it's never a problem for games like Half-Life 3, like Half-Life Alyx, or the one-off titles like Deadlock. Now, some other reasons I believe Valve just skipped out it entirely was because of the state of the game. It wasn't great, that being the 25th anniversary last year. I know a lot of people, when you look at things in the bigger perspective, CS2 really hasn't changed or improved that much from April of last year, but it has. Valve has updated Subtick. They have added new maps, new modes, new features, returning maps, modes, and features from CSGO and other Counter-Strike titles. And I think at the time, they didn't really want to do anything because maybe adding more at that given time might have done more harm than good. So ending this question, I want to end on a positive note. And that's in the next 4 years, I believe CS will be in a much better and different spot than it was last year, but also this time, most likely on par similar to CSGO, where for the 30th anniversary, maybe we could see the chroma finishes finally released for the CS20 case, not to mention a boatload of new content. And hopefully by then we'll have BACnet 3 fully released, subtick, lag compensation, FPS, and just overall performance. Hopefully we don't even really have to talk about it anymore. Let me know what you guys think about that one down below, but it's just really hard to skip over the fact that Valve just doesn't care about Counter-Strike as much as their other titles or other IPs and other things they make over there at Valve. Like, they didn't skip the 25th anniversary of Half-Life. Why did they do it for CS? It just seems like it's not that important to them. But aside from Steam, that's where their real money comes in from. But like the last few questions in today's video, we could be going on for hours about some of these topics. And if you guys maybe want a dedicated commentary to one of these, let me know down below. Now, our next question also dates back to a commentary from just a couple of days ago surrounding the competitive map pool, but also just the one-off maps, modes, and features from prior Counter-Strike titles or something new. This question up here is from MP, and he says, where is Lake? We saw it on the trailer and it isn't out yet. So great question, but it's also something we don't know. A lot of this is due to the fact that we now can't see data mines and what Valve has been working on, which has affected videos like this, but also players' knowledge of when things could and can't release. So as it stands for maps like Lake or Canals, at the time when those things came out, it looked as if they were ready for release. It was just a remaster with better lighting for CS2. At least that's how the devs made it seem. And well, 2 years later, they're not here, or have we heard or seen anything about them? Now, I have stated this in a couple commentaries and a couple Mando-Mondays, but what I will say about where these maps are is this. I think these are getting redone and getting the Train treatment. And what I mean by that is Train was also a map that was in the competitive map pool that was highly loved by players that didn't release on day one for CS2, which a lot of players at the time thought it would. Fact of the matter is with that, we didn't get it until November of last year, and not really up until the last couple of months was it fully actually finished, polished, and actually optimized. But the development cycle for Train explains the delay, and I think it's very similar to what could be happening with Lake and Canals. Because with Train's release, what a lot of players don't know is behind the scenes with Valve, they had not just 1, 2, but 3 different maps for Train that were actually pretty noticeably different. And because of that, that's why the map took over a year to release, year to make, and you guys get the rest. But if that's not the case, and they aren't different at launch, Valve could have tried things behind the scenes that we don't know about, or it's due to laziness, or the fact Valve kind of wants to stray away from Counter-Strike Global Offensive just as a title. Our second to last question up here for today's video is regarding maps once again, and this guy says Eden and Basalt are so ass. Give us Cache and Cobblestone. And well, I think a lot of players can agree with this. What I will say about maps nowadays is just the new maps don't hit the same. And I think it's actually more so of the format we receive them in and not the original creators. Because a lot of these maps, yes, maybe aren't the greatest, but they're not absolutely horrendous. Valve has strayed completely away from operation style maps with the format they're released when they're removed, and if they're loved enough, they can maybe buy the map and keep them in the game. Now, the MVP update last year, kind of in place for the 25th anniversary, those did next to nothing, and Valve doesn't really do anything with them until it's time to remove them. But I also think it's just a lack of core fundamental maps that make Counter-Strike feel so special, and that's where CSGO did it so well. Now, as it stands for Cache, what we do know is the creator, FM Pone, has stated for CS2 that he doesn't really want to sell the map directly to Valve because he doesn't want to lose the rights for the map. But when it comes down to it, in my personal opinion, for the right dollar amount, I think he'll say yes. But even if they plan on buying it, or they devs already did do a transaction, FM Pwn most likely already signed an NDA, and we won't know anything until it pops up in an update, which the reasoning for that is we also don't know with DPR updates what's happening behind the scenes. Because weeks before Tuscan and Anubis were added to CSGO, we could see that Valve bought them, they were going to be added, and they spent a decent price tag on it. Not to mention this money for Valve was also like chump change. Now Cobblestone, I'm going to be honest with y'all, we don't know if it'll be arriving anytime soon or ever. We saw it in the game files for the limited test, but that's a wrap. It was said to have a snow version, but since then we haven't seen nor heard anything about it. Players as of recently have desperately wanted it back in its glory from 2015, but even if we do get it, will players actually like it and actually play it? Will the pros enjoy it? Or is it more so people just want something good and familiar back to the game, since the map is quite controversial to say the least from pros and casuals? But then again, nostalgia is absolutely blinding. I think what it comes down to is a lot of the maps nowadays just don't hit the same. You just don't get the same enjoyment. And my question for you guys, is it because we've had the same maps in the game, not to mention the franchise, for a little over 20 years now? Our last question up here for today's video is regarding Half-Life 3 and Counter-Strike 2. This guy says Half-Life 3 will release by the time CS has its full content back and becomes enjoyable to play. And well, right off the bat, asking AI when Half-Life 3 will come out, it could very well be this year. But then again, I feel like we would have seen a statement by Valve, some sort of trailer, but we still have halfway to go. So I guess there is some plus to that. But I think the gist of your statement is not entirely wrong. As it stands for Counter-Strike 2, and when it'll be quote unquote finished and actually enjoyable for most people to play with content back from CSGO alongside something new, sadly, I think it's not going to happen or really be in place till probably 3 years from now. Meaning CS2 will be on par with CSGO in terms of long-standing content, maps, modes, and features, and in between all that, we'll also see new things just for CS2, but is that fair? And what I mean by that is a lot of people have been making statements about CSGO taking a very long time to get polished and refined to the final product we saw right before CS2 came out. But here's the thing, even back then, Valve wasn't and isn't right now an indie company. They're not making chump change. It's just people don't want to work on the game, and that's just the sad truth. Because if people actually wanted to work on CS2, or better yet, if there was a dedicated team, we wouldn't be in this boat because the game would be completely different. Now, what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts and comments down below. What map do you guys want to see in the next major update for CS2? And do you think Valve will celebrate the 30th anniversary of Counter-Strike, or will they just skip on it once again? With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positively sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.